Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous avez passé un bon week-end et j'espère que vous recevrez une bonne note dans votre premier examen. Later on this week, hopefully by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, I will have your exams returned to you with comments. Don't forget though that this week you will also have another exam over this chapter, Chapter 3, and today I'm going to go over the first lesson of Chapter 3, and it actually has two new grammar lessons, both of which I will go over in this video. So far in Lesson 1, you've gone over how to describe people and objects. For the most part though, on the exam you will have to describe people. And one way to describe them is to talk about their professions. Okay. The use of se or il or elle to talk about what one does for a living. So go ahead and turn to page 104 of your textbook, please. Now let's start with something that's fairly simple to you so far. It's something that you should already know how to say. Right here. So is the answer A or B? Je suis un Américain or je suis américain? Right? The answer is B, je suis américain, or for feminine subjects, je suis américaine. So as you noticed right here, une américaine has an article versus américain or américaine, which doesn't have an article, and so far you already know how to say nationalities in French, and so you don't actually use the article. So if you don't use the article for nationalities, how about for professions? Mon père, il est pilote, or mon père, il est un pilote. So the answer is A. Il est pilote, not un pilote. So in French, just like with nationalities, when you talk about professions, you actually do not include the article. Okay, so the answer is pilote. Mon père, il est pilote. Now, what do you think it would be if there was an adjective in the mixture? Now, we said, mon père, il est pilote. However, if you want to say he is a good one at that, which one would it be, you think? Mon père, il est un bon pilote, or mon père, c'est un bon pilote? Okay, it would actually be c'est instead, so B. Mon père, c'est un bon pilote, instead of il est un bon pilote. Now, the rule of thumb is you use il est to describe someone's profession without any judgment. So judgment meaning adjective, whatever it may be, okay? Whether it comes before or after the profession. Un bon pilote or un pilote très très excellent, or something like that. And the rule changes to c'est if you do use a word of judgment, or words, you can use more than one, of judgment. So c'est would be used in the case that you modify the profession with an adjective. So mon père, c'est un bon pilote. So now that we kind of have the use of c'est versus il est down, I'm going to talk to you a couple of other instances in which you use say, but make sure you also read the textbook because I'm not going to go over every instance. Just because most of them are pretty clear-cut, and there's some that are fuzzy though. For instance, when somebody asks you a question on who or what something is, do you use il est or do you use c'est? So when somebody asks you, who is it, when they're looking at a family photo of you, do you say il est papa or c'est papa? Okay, the answer is B. C'est papa. When you look at the question right here, qui est, when you actually answer the question, you see c'est in the question that's being asked to you. So you do answer with the same element, c'est. Okay, c'est papa. Same thing with qu'est-ce que, because c'est is in the question, qu'est-ce que, so you say c'est in response to that. Okay, last but not least, when you're describing somebody with an adjective, okay, we're not talking about professions right now, but if you're just talking about them, describing them in general with an adjective, do you use c'est or il est? For example, mon père, il est génial, or mon père, c'est génial. Right, the answer is A. Mon père, il est génial. Okay, he is instead of it is to describe somebody using adjectives. You also use il est to describe their physical features. Okay, il a les cheveux noirs, il a les yeux bruns, marrons, il a il est les grandes dents, par exemple. Okay, so you would use il est. Now, looking at the book, make sure that you go to the first activity on the next page, 105, and try the activity out for yourself. But right now, I would like you to turn to the next page, page 106, and look at the new grammar points. Les pronoms possessifs, possessive pronouns. How to say mine, yours, theirs, ours, his and hers. In French, let's take an example. So when somebody asks you, is this your pen? Or is this my pen? Est mon stylo? The response would be, non, c'est le mien. To say mine. To say mine is le mien. So what pattern do you notice here when you're trying to say mine in French? Taken from the question, mon. Okay, what do you see between the article and the noun, and then the article and the noun here? So here in the question, you can see that mon is masculine, and so the le in mine has to be masculine as well. And then mien is the masculine singular form, and same that corresponds to the object being described, stylo. So stylo is masculine singular, le mien is masculine, okay, masculine singular. You can tell by the article. So to say mine in French, you actually have to say the mine. The and mine both have to agree in gender and number of the noun being described. So it can get a little bit tricky because in English it just has one word for everything, because we don't have gender in English. We used to, but then it disappeared. But in French they do keep it. That's why they call it a romantic language. So if you look at the chart in your book, now let's just concentrate on the row that says mine, the first row, le mien. So le mien corresponds to masculine singular objects. How about ma maison? How would you say mine? Ma maison means my house, literally, but how would you just plain out say mine? Right, the answer is la mienne. Okay, la mienne. La mienne is feminine and singular, and so is ma maison. Okay, we'll skip mon livre because mon livre is the same thing as mon stylo, so the answer is le mien. How about mes écouteurs? It's a vocab word in this lesson that's new. Mes écouteurs. Now with plural objects, it's kind of harder to tell because you have to say le or la or les. But however, when you look at the correct form of the word for mine, you have to determine whether or not the plural object is actually masculine or feminine. But in the case of écouteur, écouteur is actually masculine. So since écouteur is plural, you have to use les, and then since it's singular, or not singular, masculine, masculine, you have to say mien, and then you add an s to make it plural. But how about voiture? How would you say mine, feminine, and plural? Right? Similar to la mienne, you just say les miennes. Okay? Les miennes. Voiture is feminine, and so you instantly know that it's mien, but however, since we're talking about more than one, you have to change the article and add an s. Okay, les miennes. So everything has to agree with both gender and number, both the article and the noun, the pronoun, what they call here pronoun, mien. So make sure that you also note the difference in pronunciation. Les miens, les miennes, mien, mienne. Mien has a nasally sound, and then mien, you actually say the n, mien. Mien, mien. Okay, and one thing that I do want to note is part B on the next page, 107. Contrary to the English counterpart, in French you actually say two things differently. When you want to say, for example, a cousin of mine or a friend of ours. Okay, so un de mes amis or un de nos cousins. And then the usual contractions occur with a and de. If you don't know what contractions are, it's when a and an article actually fuse together to make a new element, a new preposition, with a definite article preceding the possessive pronoun. So if you look at j'ai écrit à mes parents, and then to ask somebody, have you written to yours? Est-ce que tu as écrit au tien? So au tien, the pronoun aux, o, combines a and then the plural definite article les, and that's where you get au tien, and then the possessive pronoun. Okay, well that concludes the lesson for today. Tomorrow you will get a new lesson, but it actually continues with what we're learning today, so make sure that you do some of the activities in the textbook for practice. If you have any questions, make sure to send me an email. Okay, merci, au revoir.